Welcome to Holocaust Remembrance Around the World, our new series featuring guests from all over the world, the people whose work shapes and reshapes Holocaust memory and education, placing the past in a current, relevant, and local context. I'm Shai Pilnik, the director of the Emil and Jenny Fish Holocaust and Genocide Studies Center at Yeshiva University. Today in our program, we're actually not going to travel anywhere. We're going to stay home. We're going to stay home in two different meanings. What's known in Hebrew is, or in Aramaic, as Tartei Mashma. We're going to be home in the United States, but we're also going to stay home at Yeshiva University. We're just going to cross the Wilf campus from one side of the street to another and move to the Yeshiva University High School for boys, and also have to travel to Queens to the Yeshiva University High School for girls to a Holocaust education program affiliated with the two schools and created by our very own, my guest today, Mrs. Tova Rosenberg. Tova, Tzoraim Tovim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Tova, thank you for being with us. We're so thrilled to be joined by you, Tova, the founder of Names Not Numbers, a Holocaust oral history film documentary program which transforms the traditional study of the events of the Holocaust in Europe into an experiential learning project involving actual witnesses to those events, the survivors of World War II and veterans. Names Not Numbers moves beyond the traditional classroom walls and creates an interactive and empowering educational lesson. Through this unique program, students learn firsthand about the Holocaust by making their own professional documentary. They themselves conduct oral history interviews. They themselves film and edit personal testimonies. They themselves form intergenerational connections and become the witnesses to the witnesses. I have to say that to this date, over 6,000 students in several countries from grade 8 through college have successfully interviewed, filmed, and edited the testimonies of over, listen to that, 2,500 survivors and World War II veterans. As a part of the Fish Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies, Tova is a colleague. She's also a member of our faculty advisory board. I promised you in this conversation we stay home, and it's my extreme pleasure to have you on board, Tova. So Tova, first of all, welcome. Welcome again.
Thank you, and it's a real honor to be part of it.
Thank you, thank you. And I wanted to actually begin the conversation with your journey. I think a lot of people, a lot of members of our community have already learned about Names Not Numbers or had children who interacted with you, who got a chance to make a documentary film. This could also be perhaps a quote unquote a commercial for communities that have not had Names Not Numbers yet. But I don't know how many people have had a chance to listen to your journey. So the journey actually begins in central Pennsylvania. Perhaps a couple of decades ago, you're going to tell us, and I'm curious to see where this brilliant idea of combining documentary filmmaking and education, Holocaust education, where these two came together, and how you brought the project from its genesis, from its humble beginnings, until this point.
Okay, so Shai, we're going to have to go a little bit farther back than central Pennsylvania. And I'm a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis. I spent my junior/senior year at Hebrew University, and I was the student of Professor Yuda Bauer, who's really the #1 name in Holocaust, in the world of Holocaust, and also as Professor Ezra Mendelsohn, all that were giving courses to the students at Hebrew University, and I took both of those subjects. So that starts really the very beginning. There's always the question, am I a child of survivors? No, I am not. My father, it depends if you want to go by the definition of survivor, someone who had to leave their home. My father was in Switzerland during the beginning of World War II, and then was brought to the United States by the Neri Israel Yeshiva in Baltimore. My mother was not a survivor. So essentially, I can say that I'm learning about the Holocaust together with the students in my project. We'll go forward 17 years ago. I was a day school principal in central Pennsylvania, and I received a letter from the state that I could apply for an intergenerational grant, nothing to do with Holocaust. We were one of the few schools in those days that we had Holocaust studies in the curriculum. And it became just, what can I say? An idea that I woke up with one day and said that I'm going to teach the students about the Holocaust via their making a professional oral history film documentary. And so the framework of the project that was 17 years ago is still the framework of the project today. And here I'll give just a few sentences about what's involved in it. The students, the vision, my vision, was that students do not just students, nobody understands what a number like 6 million is, but we can understand the story of one. And that is exactly how I wanted to teach the students, through the story of one. But they need to do something with it. It's not just hearing the story. Wonderful to have Yom HaShoah programs, movies, books, but I wanted something that was going to teach the students and to touch their souls. And that was through their making an oral history documentary. One, it's an experiential project. Students are making something. And number two is the intergenerational connections. They are able to sit across from that survivor, ask whatever they want, learn what they want, they document it, and then they make the documentary. So those are,
sorry, go ahead.
I want to say those are essentially the steps that the students working in groups receive the information about the survivor. They are mentored by professional journalists, how to research and craft the questions. They're mentored by filmmakers, how to film for an oral history. They prepare everything. The survivor, the intergenerational connections are coming into the school. They're being interviewed and filmed. The students are then taught editing. And the end result is the oral history film documentary, which has the great privilege of being archived in major academic institutions, museums, and universities, and perpetuating the story, which you said, the witnesses to the witnesses.
That's incredible. So, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
More.
Perhaps a short trailer from a movie, from a documentary film, is worth 10,000 words. So let's give our audience the possibility to see, just to get a snippet of Names Not Numbers in action, and play the trailer for a documentary film, Names Not Numbers, that we will speak about later.
I was about 11 or 12 years old.
In my 6th grade world history class.
I didn't know very much about the Holocaust.
I feel like schools haven't been talking about it.
In my 9th grade year, they went into more depth.
It was like shocking to me.
So I went and I started like investigating about it. How did this happen, and what are concentration camps, and what are ghettos?
I never thought that this could actually happen to another human being.
You're going to meet the survivors. You're going to hear firsthand from the survivors.
You all are now going to serve as witnesses to the witnesses.
What you have the opportunity to do is to be involved in the capture of history. It'll be your job to turn that into not just a recording, but a movie. A movie that has emotion, a movie that has power, a movie that has a message.
You're going to have many roles. We're going to have someone monitoring the audio. We're going to have someone monitoring the camera. You guys are going to film each other.
I don't think any of us have really dealt with professional films or interviewing.
I am a nervous wreck.
The Holocaust happened because of bigotry, prejudice, hatred of the other.
We have to respect each other, and we have to be there for everybody.
Remember, Germany was considered the most educated, cultured country in the world. Look what happened there. It could happen here.
It's very important for you young people to make sure that it never happens again.
My voice is fading, and it is your job to tell these people, and indeed tell the whole world, to not let the world forget
Okay. Thank you, Diabla, our coordinator, for showing this introductory trailer for the movie. Tova, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your pedagogical philosophy. Normally, a lot of schools do have the fortune of having a Holocaust survivor come to the school and give a testimony, but normally Holocaust education is essentially an overview of history. Sometimes students also learn about the Holocaust in an English learning arts class and read normally the memoir by Anne Frank or Elie Wiesel's Night or The Sunflower by Simon Wiesenthal. What, in your opinion, or what do you know about data that shows us the importance of this kind of engagement with survivors?
A few years ago, a survey was made in Israel. And don't forget that probably that is the country that has the most Holocaust education, whether it be from Kristallnacht to Yom HaShoah to all the other programs that are done. 900 Israeli high school students were interviewed. What left the biggest impact on them in Holocaust education? And they were given a number of categories. Among them, the traditional ones, the museum visits, the survivor coming to a school to speak, watching films, Poland trips, everything that we can imagine. And one of the categories was sitting down and speaking to a survivor one-on-one, essentially what we're doing, interviewing them. This is what left the biggest impact. It was 40% of the students said that that left the biggest impact. All of the other categories were 16 and under percent of what the students answered. So I think it really is showing us that this is the right way to teach. I'd like to say just one, the trailer which you saw, and you saw the very first title card, it said ABC, and also the Miami Jewish Film Festival. This was, and also if you think about some of those messages that those survivors said, they were like prophets. This film was made 3 years ago. And to hear what the survivor were saying, it can happen here. You know what, we have reality of what's happened over this past 2 years. So this was the best. There were 5 schools in the greater Miami area, 4 public schools, 1 day school, that interviewed survivors, did the project. And then from the Miami Jewish Film Festival, they turned to me and they said they wanted to make the premiere film of that film festival last January to be the best of the 5. And what you saw was part of that film. From that, ABC turned to me, the national, that they wanted to offer a slot to their affiliates that they could screen this film. So over 260 affiliates out of the 300 and the low 300s picked up on this and screened the film from this past October through this past December. So I think it's pretty incredible that you were seeing the gamut of the students who were participated in it, and what can be done with a project that's experiential.
Let's look into the process. From the moment a school decides to commit to a names not numbers production, I suppose that the project begins at the beginning of the year, and it also culminates at the end of the year with an event that, when you described it to me off record, sounded like the Oscars, some sort of a version of the Oscars awards. So let's talk a little bit about the step-by-step process, and also about what the students learn throughout it.
What I'm very proud of this project, which is really a one of a kind, is that the students are doing everything. They're involved in everything. And we know from education that an experiential project is going to have the lasting effect on the students that are part of it. They're creating something. But we also want this to be something that is professional, something that is going to be, that major academic institutions will want to take it and archive it. And they check it, by the way, before any of them include this in their archives. So we need to have the students to be taught. So we start out, first of all, the students are learning about the rationale. There are those that choose it as an elective course. There are those an entire grade does it. There are those that do it as a small group. It's, what should I say, it runs from three groups of students doing it up to 10 groups of students doing it. They're working together. Again, this is a collaborative project, another skill that we want to impart for them in education. They hear the rationale from the principal, so forth, and they also see an example of one of the documentaries that is done in another school. In other words, they will be interviewing and filming the survivors for approximately 2 hours. Then they have to edit this down to 20 minutes and make it into an oral history.
How do they know how to edit, how to make
Okay, I'll get to it. So they're seeing, first of all, they're seeing what they are going to be doing, another school's project. Then we have the journalist coming to train them how to prepare and then how to interview for an oral history. It's vastly different than just a news broadcast, because in an oral history, and that they saw that in that sample documentary, you don't hear the questions. You only hear the answers put together as a story of before, during, and after the war. Then we have the students receive the biography. They're identified either by the school or by other people, and they do research on the places where they were before, during the war. They craft their questions. Then the videographer comes in with broadcast quality equipment, which you saw the pictures of those Sony cameras. And there are not too many kids who get from 8th grade through college who get to use that type of equipment. They're taught to use the equipment and to film for an oral history. When all of that preparation is done, the survivor comes into the school, they're interviewed, filmed, every kid in the group does everything. In other words, every student will have the opportunity to use a camera to interview. They're then taught editing. It is not done on a professional program. It's something simple that everybody can manage. The students edit this 2-hour documentary down to 20 minutes. And this is the oral history documentary done by the students, number of groups, times 20 minutes. Now, what is most unique, again, in this project, another skill in education are reflections. What you saw in that movie, the trailer, was you heard the kids talking. They were reflecting on what they learned, not just the skills, but also the messages, what they're going to do with this for the rest of their lives. And that's something is cardinal of importance, because they are giving their insight for what they learned. And this is the message that they're going to take for the rest of their lives.
When you talk about the rest of their lives, I wonder how much information do they retain? Normally, we know that when, in Holocaust education, assessment is so essential. The data actually shows that students either don't learn much, or even if they learn, they cannot name a single concentration camp, or they cannot really figure out how many Jews were killed during the Holocaust. I'm curious if you had any experience interacting with the students a number of years after they done the project, and what, how much information, how much of the story, the survivor story, they still remember.
Okay, absolutely. I have a lot of interaction with students that I meet who did the project. The project is 17 years, who did the project 15 years ago. And I always ask them, it's almost like a joke on my side, do you remember who you interviewed, the name of your survivor? Whom did you interview? And they will stand and tell me for approximately, it's happened over and over, 30 minutes, their survivor story. This is 15 years after they did the project. And here we know, again, from education, something that is experiential, something that they are creating is going to live a bigger impact. But I will add on also, if they have to edit a 2-hour movie down to 20 minutes and take out just the very best seconds to put it together as a story, they are watching this film over and over. And every student they've gotten up the valedictorians in the schools at the end of the school year that they did the project. We'll talk about how this is something that has left an impact for the rest of their lives. And it's because they had to edit it. And it's definitely a lot more fun for kids today to come out with a film than a term paper that you hand in to your professor or to your teacher.
So through the editing and the re-editing process, it's not just that you constantly achieve two goals. They learn how to make a documentary film, but through this repetitious process, they manage to retain the story of the survivor. Do they also learn get the background of the Holocaust? Let's say if a survivor from Hungary is interviewed by them, they learn about the Holocaust in Hungary or get a context, the general context about the Holocaust?
They've learned from the journalist how to write the questions and how to interview. And then before they're writing their questions, they also have sessions on the Holocaust. So again, every school determines whether it's 4 introductory sessions that give them the timeline. It can be, which you mentioned, an elective course like for a semester, so it ends later. Essentially, every school makes that decision, but yes, they have to have some academic background so they can craft the questions that are suitable for that survivor.
Let's talk for a moment about the schools. So you mentioned the Miami Public School before, a program, an educational program that later turns into a full-blown documentary film. We'll talk about the films in a moment, and also an ABC television documentary, ABC channel documentary. Do you have experience working with both Jewish schools and public schools? So you mentioned the public schools, but let's find out what are the other schools. Are they only Orthodox schools, the Jewish day schools, or ones affiliated with other with other denominations?
Okay, so we'll start with originally what I mentioned 3 years ago, there were the 5 greater Miami schools. Last year, it was in 7 schools throughout the entire state of Florida, including 1 Catholic school. These were only public schools and the Catholic school. Now, I mentioned the project started 17 years ago. The project is done in Orthodox day schools. It is done in Solomon Chester day schools, part of the conservative movement. It is done in community day schools. And then we have some very unique projects besides obviously the public schools, and that is a collaboration between the day school and a public school. And the students are working together in every part of it. So again, if we talk about collaboration, we are, it goes back to this whole project is collaboration, students working in their groups. But the fact that now you have kids teaching kids, that you have the students from the various backgrounds and they're participating in everything together and learning from each other, this is to me one of the most incredible types of projects. The grade levels, it goes from grade 8 all the years in high school, and it has been done in university. Seniors in college also did it. So obviously the curriculum is open-ended enough that it fits in every stage of education. And it also the fact that I can say the most pride of the collaboration projects, because here we really have kids to kids.
That's wonderful. So I wanted to just take a quick break and thank the audience, the members of our audience who are joining us live. Please feel free to share with us your questions to Tova in the Facebook chat. We will be, Hodaya, our coordinator, will be reading them and sharing them with me in the Zoom chat. And I will be asking Tova these questions. Tova, I wanted to talk to you about a memorable program, a moment that you found as exceptional in the decades that this project has been in existence.
Shia can say that in every project, there is a memorable moment because we're dealing with people's stories, and every story is a story, and it doesn't matter whether they were in a camp or they were part of the resistance or they were in Siberia or they came to the United States in 1940 and their trip on the way and how in Righteous Gentiles, righteous among the nation. So every story is its story. But I like to say that what is, and you mentioned that we have at the end of the project, and there was one step we didn't talk about yet, is a culminating event. At the end of when after all the editing has been done, the student documentary has been prepared, now comes documentary number 2, Names Not Numbers, a movie in the making. And this is the story of the students learning to do the project through their own words. The filmmaker is following them from day 1 through the entire process. And I talked about testimonials, which you saw in the film, and the students are being interviewed throughout the entire project, their insights, what they learned, the skills from the interviewing, filming, not just the Holocaust story. At the end of the project, there is an event that is organized by each school, and it has one, obviously, the intergenerational component, which is so important. They'll have a closed event, a dinner together with the survivors and families, and then the real program that opens up, which the showcase, obviously, is now the movie in the making. At this program, most of the time, the schools will identify one student to speak. He or she would be the representative of the group that did the project. So we heard testimonials throughout the project, but now there's one student getting up in front of the audience. And by the way, the audiences go from 300 to 1,000 people at these events, and giving his reflections. And I think it's really worthwhile for you to read, for me to read. This is a student in one of the Miami schools, in one of the Miami public schools. And this is what he said. Understanding history, respect for humanity, and intolerance of hate are timeless lessons. We are grateful to have had the opportunity to learn directly from living survivors. As young students and the future leaders of tomorrow, we need to continue to share a story that cannot be forgotten, and we must make sure an event like this never happens again. Our lessons today are the hope for tomorrow's world. That is a statement that was given by a senior in one of the public schools in Miami.
Wow. Tova, maybe we can watch, one thing I wanted to pick up on is when we think about the moment, what happens in the moment. So we have this special moment of a survivor who is there to tell a story that's unique about an event that is unprecedented in history. And at the same time, another memorable moment is the impact that that story has on a student. So this is something that I found fascinating about the project, that it always goes two ways. I'm sure that it's an incredible and powerful experience for the survivor to participate in Names Not Numbers. The survivor remembers that and appreciates the respect, the attention that they receive. And at the same time, the students are there to bear witness to the story of the survivor and remember it for the rest of their lives. So let's watch another clip from Names Not Numbers, and then I would like to talk to you a little bit about the film. Then we're going to take some questions from the audience.
It hit me hard because it's almost like what's happening today over in Venezuela. My mom and I were not going to be safe. We got lucky because we left at the beginning of everything. But most of my family members, like my aunt, almost didn't make it out. We're doing everything all over again.
No little kid should have to go through all those things. I feel like they shouldn't even have to live in fear. Little kids are supposed to have fun, play with children.
We're all equal, even if everyone is a different religion, everyone thinks different than you do.
It inspires me to appreciate people, to hang out more with your mom and dad.
I think we can learn how to treat people and how not to treat people.
We need to speak up if we see something. because we're also the ones that are going to change this generation.
When I hear people tell me that the Holocaust didn't exist, because they do say it, they do say that it's nothing but Jewish propaganda. They say that it's only a figment of the Jewish imagination. But I would tell them that I went to Poland and I went to the camps and that I felt the ice-cold floor of the gas chamber. And I would tell them that I smelled the air of the crematorium. And I would tell them that my tears are now mixed with those huge pits of human ash. And I would tell you kids that my voice is fading and pretty soon it will not be heard anymore. And it is your job to tell these people, and indeed tell the whole world, to not let the world forget.
These are not students who come from families in which the story of the Holocaust has been taught. I'm curious. They must have learned about the Holocaust for the first time as a part of this project. And what's amazing to me is how they managed to quickly make connections, both understand Jewish history by learning about the Holocaust, but also connect it to their own personal life, to current events.
That's what an intergenerational project does. And to watch, you know, when you weren't watching like the end of every interview, is we do a group, the students present a gift to the survivor. There's a group picture of the survivor together with the kids. And in every single one of them, the survivors can't get enough of being with these students. And you can see all of the affection when they're handing over the gift. They're hugging them. It is, you know, what you mentioned, it is an unbelievable moment for the survivors, and it's an unbelievable moment for the students. And that also, when we go back to what leaves the impact, this is also the memory. And they talk about that, the students, that, you know, that this was incredible, that they had this opportunity to be able to sit across the table, ask what they wanted to know, and to be able to be with them, the intergenerational connections. And they're not just learning the story of the Holocaust, Shai, and here we're seeing it this year more than ever, is they are also learning the story of resilience. And they're getting the message of how to go through life no matter what. And we see that we are also telling the students, you know, ask more questions about now, not just, do you think it could happen in the United States? We know it can happen. We see what's going on in the world. But tell us now, how do we go through it and do something with this? And the kids are, and I would like to say another, you asked me about something I was proud of, is where this project has gone besides the movies. We are receiving reports, again, kids are now 17 years older, they're 35 years old already. And they tell us that they decided to go into journalism because of this project when they were in the 8th grade. And they had this opportunity to be mentored by a professional journalist. And we have some incredible people throughout the world who jump in to do this. There are students who decided to go and major in film in college and have made Holocaust documentaries, not names, not numbers, that have won awards. There are students that have gone on to go into museums, that they become docents in Holocaust memorial museums. We have students that have gone on to be teaching Holocaust studies. We have the students also, and this is really important, who made the decision to go into to be activists. Let's change the world. Let's not be bystanders, we're going to be upstanders. We have taken an educational project par excellence. We have learned from it, and now what are we going to do with it? And these are the things, when you ask what am I proud of, besides the quote that I read from the student, that's another part that I'm most proud of, that yes, we are changing the world through the project. And that's the importance of having it in as many schools, as many different schools, as many different levels as can be. And it goes back to the kids are also, you know what, they're having fun. They're learning how to film with major equipment that no other project would ever give them. It's not taking your iPhone and filming your grandfather.
Wow. Let's let me ask you a little bit about the reception. So in January 2020, the Miami Film Festival featured the movie Names Not Numbers as the premiere for the Jewish Film Festival. Is that right?
Absolutely, and it was sold out.
So tell us a little bit about the reception, and from what I understand, from the humble beginnings in central Pennsylvania today, this project is known by thousands of people, both through the parents and the students who participated, but also through the effort of ABC channel and the distribution of the movie. So tell us a little bit about this wide net of Names Not Numbers outreach.
My greatest thanks, Hakarat Tov, really are to ABC, because through the ABC film, this film was presented in areas that would never have any contact at all with Holocaust survivors, with any Jewish people. And we began receiving emails, and don't forget, because it's broadcast, we were not allowed to put our website on. People had to look for us by the name. We were receiving emails from teachers all over the United States, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, anybody who had that affiliate that they could watch, and asking us to send them a DVD of this film. They planned on using this film in their Holocaust education studies to their students. So this one, and we also wrote a curriculum for this to assist them in 3 lesson plans. But this is also what you said, a memorable moment, that to get this project out into areas where they could never meet a survivor, and the students can, again, this is kids teaching kids. These kids, no matter wherever they are, we're going to watch this film because you're featuring kids in it. And it's not just another movie with a survivor telling his story.
Okay, great. We have some questions from the audience, and I would like to encourage more members of the audience to share with us their questions. As the survivors are harder to find, would you consider moving on to interview the children of survivors who also have incredible stories? I know this has been done, but this can be a good lead to another good answer, Tova.
Okay, so 17 years ago already, we began interviewing second generation. It was usually the survivors are identified by the schools, and many times there was somebody in the school that their parent, let's say the grandparent had just passed away, and the parent of the student participating knew the story really well, and they wanted it documented. So yes, we have been interviewing second generation throughout the 17 years that the project is going on. My philosophy obviously is, if we can get the survivor, we prefer obviously to get the story from the person who was there, from our heroes. If not, yes, there is definitely great value to having the child of also tell the story. And in here, we also have added other components. For instance, some type of a discussion with a famous psychologist who also participated in the project about, what are the repercussions on second generation, that they had parents that went through this. So there are other tangents that we have opened up because we have been doing second generation, limited few, throughout the 17 years.
Can we also consider Names Not Numbers for other tragedies, the genocides of other ethnic groups? Has that been ever done, bringing a survivor, not of the Holocaust, but of another genocide who is not Jewish?
Okay, so in one project we did a few years ago, and that was the hotel manager from the Hotel Rwanda the real one, not the actor.
Not from the movie.
Not from the movie. And he was interviewed by a group of students in the project, because that group of students had also interviewed a survivor who had been saved by one of the righteous among the Gentiles. So it was to show that there is exactly what you said. There are other genocides, and there are people who helped people, the upstanders. And we, of course, wanted to include that in our film as well, to teach the students of the importance of upstanders, not just from that Holocaust survivor telling the story prior to interviewing Hotel Rwanda's hotel director.
So the whole project, as you know, and I'm of course biased, and I would like to be biased. I find the project fascinating. In Holocaust education, our main challenge is how to move away from the transmission of information and assessment of what the student has retained, just because we are not here to just tell history, but rather to educate human beings. Holocaust education is a part of what is normally framed as character education. And when you talk about students that interact with you 17 years later, I can think about all the math and science and English and art that I learned, but the decision to become journalist had to do with one chapter in their 12-year education, and that's the collaboration with Names Not Numbers. I think that this is just incredible. Tova, I wanted also to congratulate you for winning the Wilbur Award. So I know that the Wilbur Award is a big deal. Who else won the Wilbur Award, by the way?
We have Oprah Winfrey, we have the New York Times, we have 2020, we have the Canadian Broadcasting Commission, we have all the stations, and even Mr. Rogers.
Wow, and now we have Tova Rosenberg. So what is the award for?
I'm
Mazal
going to
tov,
say, thank you. I'm going to say, go on the website and look, the Wilbur Award. All right, this is an award that is given essentially, you got it. I think, you know what, I would really just to read the awards of the Religion Communicators Council, RCC, recognizes the work of individuals, production companies, and agencies as they communicate about religious issues, values, and themes with professionalism, fairness, respect, and honesty. And there you have also Morgan Freeman was among the winners. The major idea of this award is really that the people who have won the award are, I can say, essentially changing the world with their work. And it is, one of really the greatest honor that we are part of this very special group of people. And it's, by the way, I think it said it on there, it's been going on since 1949. They have been giving out these awards. And what I say, you look for, you're asking me for highlights. Obviously, this is one of the highlights. And it shows how, and by the way, that we understand the panel of judges were behind our getting this award. And that's it. You know what, in this special year, first of all, anyway, this is a teaching project, but now we have another aspect in it, and we have to teach as fast as we can, because we look at what's going on in the world.
Wonderful. Tova, if it was up to me, I would give you the Nobel Peace Prize for education.
What about an Oscar? I want that too.
Or the Oscars. But from what I understand, the good news is Names Not Numbers is not over. And so what's the plan for the future? That's another question from the audience.
Oh, we have lots of plans for the future.
Looking ahead, a year, 5 years, 10 years ahead. What's the direction of Names Not Numbers?
Okay, so first of all, the conventional project definitely continues for 5 years, because we're looking, the age of 76 years ago was the end of World War II. You have people who 5 years from now will be 90 years old. We have survivors that are 102 and 104 that we are interviewing today. So we definitely have the survivors for the survivors to interview. Obviously, also to hear more second generation. That's another one. Our plan is to get it out into as many areas as well, that there are no survivors. and it can be done, we learned that Zoom works. But to have that also, to have the connections with a group of students learning how to do the project, because all the educational skills are very important. So we have to be there, and also to be able to have them hook up and have another filmmaker helping out, getting the survivor to be able to tell their story, even if they're 3,000 miles away. So, and we're seeing that that works really well as also. We have lots of other plans of concentrating a little more on the aftermath. What can these kids learn, and what are they going to do with it in the future? And that's one of a very important piece, because that's the only way we can change the world, is through education and through giving it again into the hands of the kids to work on this. And it's only if they have knowledge and education. So we have a whole 8-part plan of what we want to do next year, and a 5-year plan. So we will not stop, Shai, because we
should
can't
not
stop.
Thank you. And despite the inevitable passing of Holocaust survivors, I suppose some of them are no longer with us. Some of them are too frail to share their stories. It's relieving to know that you do look at the long-term picture, and that names not numbers is here to stay. Tova, thank you. Thank you for this engaging conversation. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the Fish Center, on behalf of Yeshiva University. I would like to encourage schools, educators that would like to invite names not numbers to their communities to contact you. How do they go about doing so?
My website, namesnotnumbers.org. There's a place that you can put in that to send me that I should contact them, and definitely we are open to any type of a project connected to Holocaust that a school would like to do and that we can help out with. So it's not just our conventional project. We know one thing, and all educators know, that everybody has to be flexible, think out of the box, and definitely we do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. The Emil and Jenny Fish Center has been pleased to present this program of Holocaust remembrance around the world. Thank you, Tova, for joining us today.
Our primary mission at the Fish Center at Yeshiva University is bestowing a master's degree for students interested in Holocaust and genocide studies. We have a short video clip about that now.
If there's truth to the saying that history repeats itself, then Holocaust remembrance and the study of genocide is not only a vital part of history, but also a crucial warning for the future.
Confronting Holocaust deniers and distorters is one of the most important tasks of our generation.
The Fish Center at Yeshiva University was founded with this mission of preserving the history of the Holocaust as well as more recent genocides. Our master's program offers a unique investigation of the Holocaust of European Jewry with an interdisciplinary approach through the lenses of law, social work, history, theology, education, literature, and political science. If this sounds like a path you would like to pursue, apply now or learn more. I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join us and become a member of our growing community of scholars and educators.
Thank you to all of our community partners, the Holocaust and Human Rights Center in White Plains, New York, the Center for Holocaust Education in the East Valley JCC in Arizona, 3GNY, the Florida Holocaust Museum, the Rabbi Arthur Schneier Program for International Affairs at Yeshiva University, Shadowlight in Canada, Manhattan College, the Sosua 75 in the Dominican Republic, the Holocaust Memorial and Museum in San Antonio, Texas, Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Studies Center in South Africa, 2 different programs at the University of Miami, the Holocaust and Education Center in Fukuyama, Japan, the Illinois Holocaust Museum in Skokie, the Sister Rose Thiering Fund in Education for Jewish and Christian Studies, the Lake District Holocaust Project in the UK, Jewish Gen, and the Maltz Museum in Cleveland, Ohio.
Additional thanks to Odaya Plau, our program coordinator at the Fish Center, and to our producer, Lois Roman. Please tune in next month for the next episode of Holocaust Remembrance Around the World on Sunday, May 30th at noon. We will travel to Canada. So we're going to move from home to our country next door and be joined by Jordana Lebowitz to discuss her project Shadow Light, which brings Holocaust education to Canadian schools in an innovative multimedia format. Tova, thank you again. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you atzlacha, good luck with Names Not Numbers and all of your other educational pursuits, with the hope that the Fish Center will always be there to support your efforts and your mission. Thank you.
And Shai would like to say it was a great honor to be part of your series. And I would like to thank personally Mr. Emil Fish for everything that he has done for Holocaust education.
He certainly deserves the thank you from you, from me, and from the rest of our community. So thank you, and we will be with you in Holocaust education around the world, May 30th at 12 p.m. Stay tuned. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.